Hey, Star Wars fans and Rule of the Galaxy fans, welcome back to another edition of the Rule of the Galaxy podcast. It is Joe, finally back in the pilot seat. I've been missing everybody. I've been away quite a bit with work and travel and all that, but we are here. We're ready to start a new episode number 178, I believe, episode 178 of the Rule of the Galaxy podcast. And tonight, we've got a special guest who, you know what, I was lucky enough to meet this young man through my son and through the racing world, and then to find out that he's a huge Star Wars fan. So tonight's special guest, Mr. Jack Harvey. Jack, how are you, sir?
Doing well. How are you?
Doing great, doing great. Thanks so much. I know I've been bugging you and checking in with you to see if you could hop on, and I really appreciate you doing this because we met back in May, I believe. Gosh, it's been that long. At the 500 at the track, and my wife and
Having
I have been.
burgers,
Yes,
grilling.
that's right. I had grilling in the parking lot there. My wife and I, we've got the Jack Harvey shirt now. We support you when you're out there racing. And
Thank you.
for everybody who doesn't know, Jack is a driver for the Ray Hall Letterman Lanigan Racing Team, the High V team, correct? The High V car.
Yep. Yep.
There we go. And one thing I love about it, Jack, every time when we're watching you out on the track, it's that black and red car. It looks like you're a Sith. So I don't know if that was planned or it just worked out well with the color scheme, but you
It did
definitely
work out well.
it did. It did.
When
So
when I saw the livery for the first time, I was like, "Oh, stealthy. That looks kind of reminded me of Kylo Ren's helmet a bit."
100%. Yes, that's
So
where I was
that was
going with it.
cool.
Yeah. So one of the first things I wanted to talk to you about was the helmet that you had during the 500 weekend that you unveiled when I believe Kenobi was coming out all that time ago.
Yep.
How did that all come to fruition? How did you get that all set up for your helmet to have Anakin, Obi-Wan, the clashing sabers, all that?
Well, I mean, for the 500, always try and do something kind of unique and special. And every 500 helmet that I've had has had a unique feature of it. And to be honest, I just remember looking at one time, seeing when Kenobi was coming out, and then I saw the time on it, and I was like, wait, that's like either right before, like, I think it was literally like the Wednesday or the Thursday
Yeah.
before the Indy 500s. I was like, oh man, this could be awesome because for anyone who would know me or even follow my channels for a little bit, it's not long before Star Wars is normally crowbarred either into conversation or my timeline feed. So I called. His name's Brian. He helps me with all my social media, and I was like, "Hey, I've had an idea. Here's what it is." And he was like, "Man, I love it," because he's a big Star Wars fan as well. So I didn't think it'd take any convincing. And it's one of them things where I think, if it had happened at another time,
Right.
it might not have made sense. But the fact that obviously I'm a huge Star Wars fan, I was doing the Indy 500, Kenobi series was coming out, and I feel like there's been so much hype, like particularly around that series and how long people have wanted it, and it's kind of just the direction of Star Wars is globally heading.
Sure.
I was like, wow, if we don't do it now, the chances of doing the Indy 500 without a Star Wars helmet just probably never going to happen. So we actually reached out to some people at Disney and we're like, hey, like this is the idea we've had, like we want to do it. And we got limited traction. I'll be honest with you, it wasn't like they were like, oh yeah, you know,
Really?
crack on. They didn't exactly say no. Well, they certainly didn't say no, but they didn't really give us any ideas. So then, in terms of obviously trying to predict what we thought the show might be about, and we saw some of
Right.
the photos that had been leaked, kind of felt like it was a safe bet to use, one of the basically two of the photos that they actually that they had published in terms of in the run up to the show. So then we had, basically what I came up with, the idea of like a light side and a dark
Mm-hmm.
side, and then obviously just had the appropriate things scattered everywhere. And then I called my helmet painter and was like, "Hey, I got a fun project for you to work on." And I mean, he spent so much time on it, knowing that I was a fan. And I guess to me, what I thought was cool about it was, every aspect of the helmet has it's very organic in the sense of the way they did my name. You know, the family, my parents' family logo that's been on the top of all my helmets. You know, we transcribed all them things into Arabic, and it just fit and felt right. So that if you aren't a Star Wars fan, you could look at it and still be like, "Wow, I really appreciate the, you know, artistry in it and the design and stuff." And if you're a Star Wars fan and you're a proper fan, you'll look at it and go, "Oh my god, like these tidbits all around the helmet." So that was just awesome. I was happy that the team didn't push back on anything. We still had all the sponsors on where they were meant to be and stuff like that. But I think in that moment, I think that's the highest performing post that we had on the year across Instagram and Twitter and things like that. I mean, people just seemed to like the idea of it. And again, the timing of it was perfect. And yeah, it was cool.
No, it was great. And I tell you what, one of the other things that really got me was, you know, my brother-in-law is in the racing world, and his son is at 7 or 8 years old, racing all over the country. But I was at one of his birthday parties, and I go into his house, and my brother-in-law used to work with Marco Andretti's team. And he shows me this Indy car that's got the Phantom Menace logos on it.
Yeah.
And I took a picture and posted it out there. Well, sure enough, my son Joey then tells me, "Oh, Jack tracked that down. He went and got one of those because of that." So that car was awesome. I still haven't found one. I don't know where you found it. So
I'm not even sure, to be honest with you. I wish, you know, I wish I'd gone. So our apartment is kind of, it's not as big as we'd like it to be. Like, we need more space. And apparently clearly this doesn't happen in your apartment or your house from what I'm seeing, because you have a whole wall of Star Wars related things there.
Yeah.
It's apparently a little bit of an eyesore, which I've been told. So anyway, I've got some bits scattered around that I can try and fit in where I can. So after you posted that, I was like, "Oh, I'm going to try and find it."
Right.
And anyway, I found one. I can't remember where I found it. And then I got Marco to sign it as well. So I was pretty chuffed about that, because I went on a bit of a kick there, and I basically found any time that like Star Wars has been on like a NASCAR or an Indy Car, I basically just bought one.
That's good for you. I'm glad you found that. I'm still bothering my brother-in-law to see if I can steal that one away from him. But I thought it was really cool. So
that I said that was they were cool. And I've got I told Joe about it ages ago. I've got one of the NASCAR diecasts for him, like in Star Wars livery and whatnot. And yeah, it's just, I think it's kind of funny that, you know, where you find common ground with 100%. People in a whole variety of, you know, careers and, you know, different forms of life. But then, you know, I tell people all the time, I'm just a completely regular guy. You know, I go to the track, and I'm grateful to be able to do that. In the same breath, like, you know, I do watch everything when it comes out as soon as I get up in the morning. So I really enjoyed the Tales of the Jedi. I thought that was super good. Andor, honestly, that is one of the best pieces of Star Wars that I've ever seen. I just don't know how more people aren't watching it.
Me either. I don't get it. You know what? This is going to backtrack into what I was going to ask you, because you're the same age as Joey, both born in 1993. So I know, watching him, the Phantom Menace came out when he was 6, right? The Attack of the Clones at 9, Revenge of the Sith at 12. So you fell into that same age and realm. Is that when you got involved and liked Star Wars, and then followed up with the Clone Wars after that, or?
It was actually ever so slightly before the Phantom Menace came out. My uncle was a huge Star Wars fan. I don't really know if he still is, and if he's kept up with it or not. But he was actually the first one to introduce me to it. So I still did watch the originals first, which I remember plain as day going to the movie theater and watching Phantom Menace, and then obviously all the movies after that. But my first experience to Star Wars still was the originals, which still feels nostalgic to me. And I also was kind of, when like the Phantom Menace came out and Attack of the Clones, I just thought they were great movies. Like, they didn't irritate me in the same way that they have other people. until I've been a little bit older, gone back and watched them and been like, oh,
Yeah.
there are aspects of them that I kind of I love them, and I still do in general. My big gripe really was I wish they with like, and so I know he comes under a lot of heat for this. I'm not trying to just like push it on, but if Jar Jar wasn't if he wasn't understandable,
Yeah.
it wouldn't have mattered to me then. And I've watched them all back where basically they play over his part in just an alien language, and it made the whole experience so much better. And then they
Really?
just put subtitles over it, and I was like, yes, like that to me like changed the game a bit. And I think, in all fairness, and I go back and read a lot of the stuff that George Lucas has said, and I think although I think Disney have done a great job expanding that universe, if you've ever read any of the Star Wars books from Legends and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that is a very expanded universe. I mean, although people see the movies, if you actually dive into it, there is a huge amount of like content that's there. And I
Yeah.
think when they started plugging in some of these holes with books or the comic books, or not so much the video games, I think they kind of just create them to be a fun experience. But there's a lot more links to these things than people know if you just watch the movies, which I think the movies have always just been, great storytelling. But in terms of connecting dots through, books and things like that as well, I think has been really cool. But I have to say I have really enjoyed Endor. I loved obviously the Mandalorian. I mean, it's on my shirt.
Yeah, you're wearing it right there.
But I thought Boba would have been a smidge better.
Yeah.
Honestly, don't get me wrong, I really liked. I liked seeing him, with the Tusken Raiders, and I thought that really, not humanized them, but gave them like more depth of species, culture, I guess. Whatever the appropriate thing to say there is. I thought that was cool. And it had like this slow tempo, and then out of nowhere, just like skyrocketed. But then it didn't do it with like substance, I guess.
Well, I think Disney is trying. They're Boba Fett at one point in time was supposed to be a movie. They couldn't put that together, so they said let's flesh out this story. Obi-Wan was originally supposed to be 1 to 3 movies, and they said, well, we can't put that together. Let's flesh this out this way, right? So
Sure.
I think when they played with those things enough, sometimes there's some really good parts of them. Other times it's like that wasn't A list, right? That wasn't A quality, but it was still good. I mean, I tell people all the time, anytime you can get Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen on screen, I'm in. I'll go watch that no matter what. So, but going back, because I derailed you, Andor, I think you're exactly right. Joey and I have this discussion all the time. He's like, Dad, it's really too slow for me. I'm not grasping it. And I'm going, I think it's some of the best storytelling, some of the best acting. And they make it feel so real world, right? Like I appreciate the volume thing that they film Mandalorian and Boba Fett in, but I really appreciate what I feel like is kind of a real world feel of Andor. And then Tales of the Jedi, I'll go back to that with you as well. I didn't watch the Clone Wars when they initially came out. I was busy. I was chasing kids. I was working. And then when Netflix, all of a sudden they're on there, I'm like, well, heck, I got it right in front of me. I can watch them all. I became a huge fan of the Clone Wars and everything related to them. And then to see not only season 7 with the Siege of Mandalore and all that, but then to follow it up with these Tales of the Jedi, I think the continuation of the story and that filling in holes like you're talking about, connecting things, the connectivity is huge. I thought the Tales of the Jedi was both Andor and Tales of the Jedi, I think, are A quality material all the way around.
Yeah, I mean, God bless Dave Filoni. I mean, it's just funny because like really some of them things are like obviously especially like Ahsoka is like his creation, and I really enjoy like the Clone Wars too. I'm fully up to date on on everything. I thought season 7 was really good, honestly, and not every episode, it needs to be some crazy production, but even to me, like some of the understated ones, if you're a fan, they gave you so. I'm not talking about like just fan service, but they just did fill a lot of gaps that lead to another really cool part, of the story. And I thought, Ahsoka's character I find interesting, and then to see like through again the Tales of the Jedi and spoilers, I thought the final episode was really cool to see that. And then when they circle back into what happened basically right as Order 66 happened,
right?
I thought it's just, to me, it's just cool because like those things don't just happen. It's taken someone, like so much planning, so much knowledge and just general awareness of like what story has been told,
right,
and how we need to mold this. So I thought that's really cool. The only bit about the Tales of the Jedi that I really didn't understand, and I've googled this since, and I've watched the breakdowns and people talk about it, why Yaddle doesn't speak the way that Yoda does. And I guess to me, because he's the only introduction to like that species that we've ever had, wrongly, I just assume that that's just how they are. So then when she comes in, which I think she was played by Brees Howard, right? Who I think is cool. Like she's done so many like cool, projects from being an actress to a director now and stuff like that. Like it was interesting that like they've got some big hitters come back, to like do these characters. Then when she like didn't speak how I expected, Yoda to be, I was like, wait, what? But that's probably the only big question mark I really have from it. However, again, being a fan, I knew her story that we get told, but you don't see it. So now you're actually seeing it. And even though it's animation, there's a couple of moments that you are watching it happen. And, Count Dooku, is always kind of portrayed as this, villain. But actually, when you see like him in this moment, you don't necessarily see him as one. You see him as a guy who maybe didn't have all the traditional Jedi traits, but he cared about his friends, and like all them things happen, and it just adds a bit more of like an emotional
100%
connection to it. So then when something has happened, it hits you again, and you're like, oh my god, like this is big. And what I like about Endor, really, even like with Mon Mothma, is she is a huge character who's had like hardly any screen time or any recognition. And then I just feel like this now, everything that's happening is really for the big fans that they'll know all these people, but they've had no screen time. And now suddenly you're getting to see why they were a big deal and why we all probably were like, woo, when they came on screen the first time.
I agree with you. It's amazing because I look at Count Dooku. We joke on this show, and for our regular listeners, they know we used to joke quite a bit about he was kind of in the prequels just a throwaway character. I mean, we were like, here's this old guy who shows up, he's just kind of a fill-in until they get Anakin. And oh, by the way, he gets his hands cut off, his head cut off, and what did he push anything forward? But between the novels that we've read about Count Dooku, and then watching him in Clone Wars, we started to see that depth of wow. He's not just some arrogant ass. He really is looking at this from a different angle, and Palpatine manipulated that angle he was looking at to make him turn into a Sith, right? And so you almost in these 3 episodes of his, you see him lose Qui-Gon, you see Mace Windu, you feel like he's kind of turned on him a little bit, and you start feeling like, man, I feel a little bit for Count Dooku here, right? I mean,
actually,
you're like, it turns out to be the bad guy, but in all reality, he really was he was being manipulated, but he also was there. He wanted this. He knew something was wrong. So it was great. I really liked it.
It's funny because a lot of people ask me like, who's your favorite Star Wars character? I find that so difficult to answer But I can tell you someone who is not high on my list, and thank God he got played by Samuel L. Jackson, because I mean, how can you not like Samuel L. Jackson? But really, I don't like, in principle, the character of Mace Windu, because he kind of embodies everything that was. I know people are going to watch this and be like, dude, you need to like get out into the real world and like, you know, it's a story and stuff. I get it. But he really embodied everything that was wrong.
I agree.
And that when you see people now, like that episode where I can't remember where they went to you know, rescue the villagers because the senator was starving them and there was a really didn't care about his people and stuff like that. And then basically every step along the way, Mace knew that he was in line to be on the council and to do all these things, but still let his mate crack on, and then basically made it seem like he was doing him a favor.
Yes.
Later in the episode by saying, well, don't worry, I'll have a word with him on your behalf. You're like, well, cool, man, but you've kind of you've led me down this path to get eaten by the wolves.
Yeah.
And then right as we get close there, you've thrown him a steak instead of throwing him to me. Like, I don't know. I struggled with his character in pretty much everything, because when people talk, like, even then you just said it, like people see Count Dooku as this arrogant guy and stuff like that, and I look at Mace Windu and I'm like, you that is his definition of being that way. You know, 100%. Rigid, arrogant, you know, short-sighted, dismissive, really, of like anyone else's opinion about his own, and I don't like his character.
He was, we're going to follow the council's rule and not break away from it, not bend the rules, nothing like that. And it was all about the council. And I think it was interesting that he's the one who ends up in Revenge of the Sith being the one taken out by by Anakin, you know, because he might have had enough power. I don't know. I mean, none of us will ever know. Could he have kept battling the Emperor, and was he just playing him along, or could he really have battled him out until Anakin showed up, until Anakin, you know, chopped his arm off and threw him out the window? But yeah, you're right. If it wasn't played by Samuel L. Jackson, I don't think people would like that character at all. But he adds that cool factor to where he's just,
of course,
cool, right? I mean,
he's a cool dude. I mean, geez, I mean, Samuel L. Jackson, I mean, he's just a complete badass. I mean, no, you don't meet anyone who's like, oh, I don't like that guy. You know, so then you want to like his character. And to be honest, like through certain parts of like the Clone Wars, I'm like, oh, okay, maybe he's there, like the movie. But then when you watch the animated show, and then especially like these ones, I don't know, I struggle to pick out like a favorite character. And I'm not saying he's not I don't dislike him, like he's not my least favorite character, but he's one I come to, and if I had met him in life, we wouldn't be friends.
Yeah, no, I get you.
Like, he'd be that one friend where I'm like, dude, just not chill, but like be a bit more pliable.
Yes. Yeah. Don't go all the way to Anakin's extremes to one side. Have some kind of middle in there, right?
A little bit.
Be like Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan stuck with the rules, but man, he sure did. I'm gonna let Anakin get away with this, and I'm gonna fall in love with Duchess Satine. And
I love Obi. I think his character's so cool.
Me too.
Because like in his heart, he wants to like do all these things, and you know, like he doesn't want to like, he doesn't want Anakin to like, you know, be careful with Padme and stuff like that. But then actually, when you dive into like his background, he's done all them things. So then you're like looking at it, you're like, God, that guy's like, you know, not quite his brother, not quite his dad, in that kind of that awkward middle ground where he's like experienced these things and he clearly knows it's not good. So he pushes Anakin to not do it. They can't stop him from doing it because he likes him so much and he clearly loves him. One of the things I have enjoyed about the expanded universe, and I will say I think it's cool to see Boba this way, but also like, you know, Obi-Wan, they're getting these moments to be the powerful people that we think they are. And like, that's cool, because like Boba was always like renowned this like just out, you know, crazy good bounty hunter, like the guy.
Right.
Yeah, when you watch the movies, he ends up just falling straight in like the pit, and you're like, okay.
Yeah.
Like, really? Like that's how that went down. So then when you see him riding in on a Rancor, we're like, yeah, there you go. And then like very last bit of like Kenobi, when he just like comes out of that pile of rocks, I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just cool that like these people, and I get granted, anytime they expand, they're going to be able to like give these people a backstory. But I do think it's cool that some of the more popular characters are getting the chance to really show, if I'm allowed to say this word on show, but like their badassery.
You can say
You
whatever you
know,
want.
like the level that we all know them to be, just like cool and strong and powerful. Like they get into like do that.
Well, I have a question. I have a few questions for you.
Oh yeah, sure.
So couple questions just for fun. One, we all know Jack's got kind of some movie star looks here. He could be in the movies. If Lucasfilm and Disney came to you, would you
Yeah.
jump at the chance to be in either a Disney Plus or a Star Wars movie? And what kind of role would you want to play in one of those?
Oh, I think an aspect of Star Wars that I really enjoy, because I feel like it hasn't been really, there's there's no middle ground.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not getting political, just saying. It's just an observation. You either have like the light side of the force or the dark side of the force. I always liked the idea of, realistically, someone who can dive in and out of both, because I just feel like that's so real, in the sense that everybody, has moments of, I don't care what anyone says, like everyone has moments where they can dip and dive into both. I've seen some of the most generous things be done by some people who would consider normally to be complete tools, and vice versa.
Sure.
Where people who you don't expect things to happen to, or you don't expect them to come from some people, it happens. So I think in general, I like the idea of someone who's able to, control that darkness and push themselves to a point, not to be fully pledged, Sith, but also occasionally you do see it in life where you have to push past a comfort spot to get things done. And it can be something even as simple as like, disciplining your kids a bit stronger than you wanted to one time, without fully just coming out with like yellow eyes, like, oh my God, he's turned. So if it was me, I'd love the opportunity to, if someone said, hey, you can come and be on the show, what do you want? I want to be I want to be a Jedi who straddles the middle with the ability to dip into both sides with a white lightsaber.
Okay.
Like I want one of the Ahsoka lightsabers, taken a crystal, purified it again, have it white, and go right. Because
like
the character, not the character I associate with, but the character I find really interesting, and I read the book as well because he didn't really have much screen time, was Quinlan Vos.
Right? Oh yeah.
And I'm like, he's like that guy. I'm like, oh, he's nearly like, and I know they call them grey Jedis, but like they're still Jedis. I'm, maybe someone who can basically not completely succumb to the dark side, but not be this like, self-righteous goody-goody.
You're right.
I guess, like, and Anakin is close sometimes to what I think people go through, with like being jealous and, wanting to do more and do these things. Like, I think his character is, in a lot of ways, maybe not perfectly portrayed every step of the way, but like in general, he has like a lot of real life things. And I think that's what I like, that it seems like a much more realistic thing. Like I would love to see the Jedi actually come away from this, slightly self-righteous, high principle, morals. And don't get me wrong, I think everyone should apply to like have high morals, not saying that. But like in reality, in life, there are good and bad where you don't have to go, crazy bad or like, super self-righteous good. You can straddle that, that middle.
You don't have to be a monk, a samurai monk, right? Who lives a life of a pious life and straight and narrow. You could still have those powers and dabble in real life, like you said.
And you don't also have to be a grumpy knob most of the time either, So I think that's what I would do. I'd love to be like I'd love to straddle the middle with a white lightsaber, 2 white lightsabers. I think I always thought that'd be cool. I play the Knights of the Old Republic, and that's what I've been trying to find white crystals in that, but it's super hard. But that's what I want for my character.
All right. Well, all you listeners, you're gonna have to tell, if you're playing Knights of the Old Republic, send us a message to tell Jack where he can find the white crystals for his character on that game. So I had a couple questions from people. The first one was, hardly any of us are people who drive in the Indy, Indy Racing League, or I'm sorry, Indy Car and the Indy 500. So to us regular guys, us regular Joes who go to work and we're not driving 200 miles per hour, maybe we are if we're on 465. I don't know, but is IndyCar as close to what you think pod racing would be?
I mean, yeah, I like to think so. I think that's cool because, like, in the sense, like, I feel like it'd be cool to be an astronaut, right? Like, just blasting off at like just outrageous horsepower and G-force and things like that, and that's cool. But like pod racing, in its sense, in its name, is a race. Therefore, it's a sport and it's competitive and stuff like that. And you get into do IndyCar racing, and when you look out of the cockpit of let's say Anakin's like pod racer, which actually is some of the Lego that I have still out in the corner, by the way, him and Sebulba's.
They're not nice yet. Okay.
No, they're good.
Okay.
They're pretty cool. I like them anyway.
Yeah.
It's what I want it to be, minus racing through a canyon and getting shot at by Tusken Raiders. Like, I don't think that would be too much fun if, coming around turn 2 at Indy and someone's there just like, cracking on. But I mean, I just think that'd be so cool. I mean, I guess that's maybe why I tried to be a racing driver, because it's the closest I'm ever going to get to be a pod racer.
Well, I mean, Anakin had to have special force powers, and most humans didn't have the force power to be able to pod race. And here you are, a select few people, that are doing basically that on a weekly basis. So
essentially one step closer to being a Jedi.
That's right. I sit there and I watch, and I'm like, these guys have to have special skills and powers that regular everyday people don't have, because my wife gets nervous in parking lots. So
I always say going fast is easy. It's slowing down when things are going wrong. That's the hard bit.
Okay, that's good. Joey actually asked the question for you, and he asked me to ask, if you were able to race on any Star Wars planet, I'm guessing it could be Tatooine, but which one would it be out of all the planets you've seen in the movies, the shows? Is there a planet you think would be a good place to race?
That's a great question. I kind of feel like you can look at some of the cities, and like, to me, like Coruscant would be like a street circuit, right? Like it's a very populated place. It has that street circuit feel. Is it Felucia? Have I said that right?
The ones with all the neon kind of stuff?
Yeah. I know I've butchered that name. I'm not good with names. One of my buddies gets so mad because I butcher names left and right. But like, I thought that was always a pretty, like, just from a aesthetic look, I always thought that was really, really cool and vibrant with colors, and it would be cool. Trying to think, really. I think Mustafar would be high risk, high reward. I kind of like the idea of that.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to go over the edge into the lava, but yeah, I mean,
Kashyyyk. I thought Kashyyyk would kind of be cool, super green. Nice. Again, a lot of different terrain and stuff like that. But if I've said it right, Felucia, or however you say it, would probably be my top choice there, I think.
No, I like that one a lot. I think that would be cool. As a matter of fact, when he asked me to ask that question, that was one of the first ones that I thought of was that one. I think you're right. It would have that appeal and that ambiance around you.
Yeah.
So I had another question for you here. Sorry. If you were looking at IndyCar drivers, is there any IndyCar driver that you would say would match up with any Star Wars character? Any of the guys you're around on a week-to-week basis, where you say, gosh, his personality or the way he drives, whatever, would match up with? I mean, you don't have to say anybody's the Emperor, because we don't want him to get mad at you, or Mace Windu, because we already know what we think of Mace. But
yeah, we already said him. Do you know, honestly,
Is there a Han Solo? Is there a, I mean,
Yeah. Well, I know Joey did this a while ago, right? Where did he try to match up drivers to Star Wars characters? Or I've certainly been asked this question before. If I'm thinking just like straight Jedi, I think having been friends with him this year and spent a lot more time with him this year, in the way that I'm gonna explain his character and I'm gonna give you a name.
Sure.
Character that I really like, who I think didn't get the justice he deserved in Phantom Menace, was Qui-Gon Jinn. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because he, a bit like Dooku, had an imagination and he didn't see things the same way. And, he was really the start of Jedi, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, not, like he was a new wave of growth. Like he basically was telling people that like, hey, like this is something is coming and it's bad. And I feel like we need a change in the sense of, he was outspoken and he didn't just take what other people said as like, facts. Like he had his opinion. He was happy to say it. To me, he seemed like he was happy to be unpopular if it was the right thing to do.
Right.
And in a lot of ways, that reminds me of Graham Rahal.
Really?
In the sense of like Graham, if he believes it's right, if he thinks it's, the right thing to do, I don't know anyone who's going to just, you could tell him all day, like, dude, that's not the right thing. But like, if he believes it, I mean, he's going to just keep going. Not being able to get that word is on my mind, and it's irritating me. It's like he was the start of like the new revolution of Jedi, like the new wave of Jedi that was like coming to me. And I feel like Graham is kind of that way in the sense of that, not that if he thinks he's right, he's going to keep pushing on, but like he's a guy who is happy to break the norm to do what he thinks is right, which I like that. Trying to think really.
Is there somebody you think is like Kylo Ren, little on edge? You never know what to expect, whether he's going to be the good one, the guy who causes wrecks. I
hate to say it because I feel like throughout this year he's caught some heat on it, but like in that kind of scenario, I do feel like a lot of people, not necessarily me included, because I mean we never really had any beef. I mean, we did get into it Indy a little this year at one race, but like Grosjean, I think a lot of kind of comes across that way sometimes. You're not quite sure where he's not what he's going to do, but like sometimes he could be super aggressive. Other times he's exceptionally fair. A guy do get on with well. So I'm not trying to throw. I'm not saying he's a dark guy there.
Believe me,
trying to throw.
This was for fun.
It's but he's probably that guy to me. To be honest, a bit that way. I'll put Renus in that category.
Really?
VK a bit. Just sometimes I'm like, oh, is he going to go for it? Is he not going to go for it? Like, let's just wait and see. But again, guys I really respect a lot. I mean, I feel like kind of lucky in a lot of ways. Where right now, if you look at like AJ, Mario, Rick Mears, some of these just like legends of the sport. None of them to me, like, they're not like screaming Yoda, but like still would be on like the driver high council.
Right.
No, I think that's kind of,
I like that.
Kind of
like
cool.
The high council. Yeah, that would be, I mean, I can only imagine. I mean, the people you meet and the people you talk to on a daily basis, you probably sit there sometimes and pinch yourself and go, I'm talking to AJ Foyt. I'm talking to Mario Andretti. I mean, cool. I'm sure it probably is. So,
well, it's cool because like in a lot of ways, these are. I'm a racing fan as well. I think people forget that. Like, yes, it's my profession, and I so love what I do. But the first time I met Rick Mears, I just completely fangirled out over him. Because I mean, in the day, that's Rick Mears. That's a legend right there, and. It's funny because then if I started to think it's on my mind about like the driver high council, like the group that get together, I think of like a modern driver who would probably be on it, who I feel like is sensible and fair and understands the heart and dynamic of IndyCar, is Joseph Newgarden. A guy who's fair, and again you've seen him be hyper aggressive at times this year. You've seen him be, I won't say cautious, but like, composed. And I started to put together in my mind my driving high council. I think that's fun.
I like it. I think we should get some artwork done up by your guys at your
Yeah,
helmet, and maybe put them in
yeah, we
robes,
should do.
put those
Yeah, that'd
guys.
be hilarious.
Speaking of that,
And he's a soft fan too, by the way.
really,
Yeah,
I didn't know that. Okay. Well,
yeah.
next May when we're all sitting out there having burgers by Joey's RV, we'll
We'll
need
bring
to
him
really
over.
yeah, we'll talk about it. That'd be great.
So we went to at the end of 2019 when the Star Wars theme parks open at
Mm-hmm.
Disney. A group of us went to it. Joseph being one of the people in the group who we went with.
I had a great time there. The only thing I didn't get was I went during COVID time and I couldn't get
Okay,
on the Rise of the Resistance ride. I went
I
through
didn't do
everything
that
else.
yet either.
We'll talk
I want
Joey
a
into it.
lightsaber.
That I got one too.
Did you?
I got a Kenobi. It's back there. I should light it up. It's all
Ah,
behind me.
I didn't get one because I
Yeah.
couldn't get an appointment. Gutted.
Well,
Although this is good.
go
Here we
ahead.
are now. I ordered it ages ago, and it keeps getting pushed back. So I guess a lot of people thought it was a good idea to buy one from Target. I got the Kenobi FX black edition of his saber, so I'm waiting for that to come. But I remember one of the first things I was following Joey, and then he posted something, and I was like, "That's the dark saber in the background."
Yeah.
And he was like, "You know what? I appreciate you knowing that." I was like, "Oh, dude, I know all about this." And I think that's kind of where the Star Wars started. So
Yeah, unfortunately, I got him infected with the Star Wars virus, and he's followed right along. And actually, I mean, you've probably heard, he's the one who started this podcast. He started it 2.5 years ago, and said, "Hey, Dad, come on, be my co-pilot." And then he's like, "Oh, I gotta go. I got other things pulling me around," and here I
yeah,
am still today.
that's
So,
cool. It's cool. I think it's cool that you guys have that to share because I think about the relationship I have with my dad and the things that we enjoy together and don't get me wrong, we love clay pigeon shooting, skeet shooting, motor racing, stuff like that, cars, and that's cool. But in terms of my geeky side, he's not too on board with. But my mum actually surprisingly kind of likes Star Wars, and she's been catching up, and her opinion of Endor is a bit like Joey's. It's just a little little slow. And I just said to her, I was like, go watch Rogue One, catch up on a few other big things here, and then go and enjoy yourself. Crack on.
Well, you mentioned that. It's funny because my dad, all he's into is, well, he's into a lot of things, but cars is his passion. He loves cars. He loves, he used to race at IRP when he was younger.
Oh, cool.
And so it never I never thought about doing that. It wasn't a thing that clicked with me. I was a baseball, basketball, football guy. Like Star Wars. My dad couldn't watch a Star Wars movie if you paid him. He wouldn't do it. And it's not until now that he's older that he'll talk sports to me at all. But yeah, Joey, God bless him. I love it that relationship is there because whether it's Star Wars, whether it's the Pittsburgh Steelers, whether it's the Chicago Cubs, I liked him, so he liked him, and now we have that to bond over. So
cool.
it is great. So I noticed I was just doing some research. That's kind of what I do. I'm a nerd. I've always been into soccer because our I don't look like it, but our Italian heritage, I was always into the Italian soccer teams,
Sure.
Series A and Juventus and Inter Milan and Roma and all that stuff. And I loved watching the World Cup. But you being from England and you have a couple teams that you cheer for, is that right? Liverpool and Lincoln City. So
and then the childhood teams, Blackburn Rovers. So it's kind of in my order. I would cheer for my hometown team, Lincoln first, then Blackburn, and I'm a soft Liverpool fan. I don't really have an EPL team. However,
gotcha.
Just for conversational point and to have someone to root for, that's the people I root for. They're not having a great season, in all fairness. But yeah, it's still big part of my weekend.
So I have to ask you, do you think Americans really their mad rush for, yes, the Premier League is now on every Saturday morning or whatever Sunday morning on NBC. But do you think Ted Lasso pushed him over the top? Because that's one of my favorite shows of all time.
I cannot even begin to tell you how much I love Ted Lasso. Honestly, I put it on just for background noise
So does my
sometimes, and I
wife.
think I'm going to have a humble brag here. One of the things that make I love it so much is I completely understand and the comedic side of some of the American humor,
Mm-hmm.
and I think they nailed the British humor. It's very authentic. It's very what you would go and experience. And I watch it with Gracie, and there's moments where we laugh together, and there's moments where I laugh on my own, and then I watch it back, and then my sister, watched it in the UK, and like now that's pretty much like how we communicate in like Ted Lasso like
Oh,
gifts. So I think that show is brilliant. It hasn't caught on yet in the UK, to be
really?
honest. Like, yeah, not yet. Which I do understand why. But I think, yeah, Ted Lasso. I think they've so. That's probably one of my favorite TV programs ever.
And I know this is a Star Wars podcast, but we talk a little bit about everything. But since you like it, I can tell you that my wife and we watch it if just when we're going to bed. She watches it,
Yeah,
when she has downtime. It's like Friends used to be
that's
on the TV
great.
in the background, but Ted Lasso now is. But
Yeah,
I even got a Roy Kent jersey. I mean, I was like, I'm all in.
yeah,
I love
nice.
Roy. So, but yeah, that's
He,
great.
I like it because in a lot of ways, there is a feel good factor to Ted Lasso. And like
Yep.
some of the sayings he uses, I wouldn't coin, and I'm probably not going to instigate in part of my life. However, like some of the bigger
Mm-hmm.
things, I mean, serious, like there's definitely serious elements to the show. However, if you watch Ted Lasso, you don't leave it feeling like a little bit uplifted or rejuvenated or like, we can do this.
Yes.
Like, I don't know what you're ever going to watch and do it. And the other thing really is they're not super long episodes.
No.
There's what 12 episodes a season or something. I mean, we didn't catch on to it like straight away. So we watched season one, season two, and then we're like, what do you mean there's no season three? Like, I've never been so hooked into like a
Yeah.
show like that way. And like literally yesterday, I didn't know what to watch. So I put it on in the background noise, and I just love it.
So you were in England. We were talking about this. You were in England. I went for my wife and I's 30th anniversary. We went to Italy, which was great, but she's never flown out of the country. She hates flying, but one of the things we downloaded on our phones to have ready to watch while we were on the flights was Ted Lasso, because it's just
Brilliant.
an upbeat, fun show. I will back you up on that. I'm, being a guy who's 50, I see the changes in TV, like from what it was when I was growing up to now. Ted Lasso is one of those shows that I would say it's one of the only shows out there now, like you said, that's upbeat. It leaves you with a positive message, a positive attitude. And I think I'm happy because I hope it means they'll make more shows like that, whether they're just like that or not, whatever, but just more shows that bring out positivity, because I think it's huge. And I think it does leave that after effect. I have a friend of mine who listens to the show all the time, and he actually used to be on the show a long time ago. And he told me, he was like, he's had some ups and downs, and he gets we tease him because he's got a little anger. He used to bring it out on the show. But he told me, he was like, I watched Ted Lasso, and it just boom, it hits me and gets me upbeat, gets me positive. So yes, I know it's a Star
Well,
Wars show, guys. I'm sorry, but yes, I had to
but
go
I
with it.
like that because to be honest, like at the end of the day, like we all look like you like the things you like,
Yeah.
and to me, like Star Wars always leaves me with a this is super cheesy, but feeling of like home, like
Hmm.
feeling kind of at home and nostalgic, and being able to then talk about it with people, and then go online and watch people's breakdowns, and listen to the podcast and like listen to people like talk about it, and every time they have a different take, I'm like, oh, that's really good. And really it all comes back to the same thing, right? It's wanting to be part of a nice
Yep.
community, and then suddenly when I know we're talking about Ted Lasso, but like he's a guy that you'd want to have as a friend.
Oh, definitely.
Like that's a guy where you watch a movie, you're like, oh my god, or the TV show, you're like, oh my god, like I would love it if this person, like, if this was non-fiction, I'd be signing up to his class right now.
Yep. 100%. Yeah.
And like, don't get me wrong, and I'm not on like a huge like tangent here, but one of the shows Gracie likes is Euphoria
Yeah.
with Zendaya and stuff like that. And to be honest, I struggled to get into it because I mean, don't get me wrong, it's deep and it's heavy. And there just isn't a moment where I leave it and I'm like, oh, okay, like, yeah, I'm upbeat and I feel good about something. I'm like, wow, that is some of the most intense, brilliant acting I've ever seen. But I feel like their character does right now, and like, I don't
Yes.
mind watching it for a little bit, but I think that's probably the part of, recent Star Wars that I have
Mm-hmm.
enjoyed is the little, not trying to be funny, but humorous parts to
Yeah.
make them seem like humans that actually would crack a joke. The only animated series I like bits of it. I don't love his character, but I feel like he's matured in a nice way. I like Rebels. I don't love Rebels. I
Mm-hmm.
like I like a lot of the characters from that show, but something about it just didn't quite
Sure.
connect with me. Um,
Well, it's
but my
you at a certain age you were watching it, and a certain part of your
Yeah,
life you were
maybe.
watching it. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it makes sense.
But one of the characters who most intrigues me, like and I think he's coming to big screen because I mean he got name dropped
Mm-hmm.
right at the end of the Mandalorian, is Thrawn. I I love his books. I love his Legends books. I've read all of his trilogy books, and that is a character who I am excited to see
Me too.
on screen.
I was lucky enough. We were lucky enough. The podcast went to an event in April, and we got a chance to meet Timothy Zahn, the writer of all
Oh,
the Thrawn
cool.
books.
Yeah,
I
sweet.
tell you what, that was. I mean, I was a little fangirlish, because I'm thinking this is the guy who created Thrawn right here, and I'm getting a book signed
Yeah,
by him, and yeah, I was a little starstruck just meeting him. I can only imagine what it'd be like if I met Mark Hamill or something like that. So,
that would
um,
be cool. A buddy of mine used to work at the animation studio. It's not the animation studio, yeah, the animation studio, but also the like Disney's like special effects
mhm,
uh, studio, and the name of it is like IFX or something like that.
yeah,
I can't exactly remember, and he's gonna be so mad that I got that wrong. His name's Stephen King. Wonderful guy. He took me for a tour around when we were in San Francisco, around the studio and stuff like that. And they just had some like really cool things. And I mean, we just fangirl, over it now. And he's actually heading up one of their divisions now in Australia, doing really well. But every time something new comes out, like we were always texting about it, and just kind of laughing and joking about the things we did like, things we didn't like,
right.
etc. And I think it's interesting to me because like in that moment, like having read all the books, if there was a moment where you're like, hey, we're gonna go meet Tim or Timothy, I'd be
Mhm.
like, no way. And it's funny because I see people do that in racing, and they're like, oh, we're gonna go meet Bobby Rahal. I'm like, oh yeah, I had dinner with him last night, and people
Yeah.
are like, whoa, and I think that's the funny part to me about all of this, like kind of globally. And I apply this to drivers, actors, CEOs.
Sure.
Everybody is still human being, and there's someone out there who knows them as purely Mark Hamill.
Right.
Mark Hamill, not Mark Hamill, by the way, also Luke Skywalker, which we're like, oh, that's amazing. There's someone out there who knows him purely as a friend, a guy to go for dinner with, hang out with, and
Right.
all them things. So I think it's cool. I think it's interesting. Um, but I would fangirl out pretty hard over certain people.
As would I. As would I. Well, like I said, I only wanted to keep you for like an hour, and we're coming up on that. I
Oh, it's just fun. Is that how long it's
Yeah,
been?
yeah, so we've been
Oh, I
we've
feel like
been
we just
almost.
got started.
I know. But first of all, I want to tell you thank you. I mean, because again, you were a guy who you had a good relationship with Joey, and I stuck my nose in there and said, "Oh, you're a Star Wars fan. Can I bug you?" And you were nice as can be, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. And again, you've got fans for life here at the Molinaro household. We'll
Oh,
be
thank
cheering
you.
you on every step of the way. We're actually, I know Joey's going to the race in March in St. Pete, Tampa St. Pete.
Cool.
He's trying to see if Lori and I can go, and we're gonna try to check that out. But we'll be
Oh,
around
that's
anything in
amazing.
Indy.
Yeah.
But
I
we
wish I'd
really
worn my
appreciate
shirt now. Ah,
you don't worry
missed
about that.
opportunity.
No, no.
Yeah.
So how can people track you down? What's the best way to follow you, whether it's on social media, whether you have a website where you can sell anything like that, or just to follow you as as you drive and as the season goes on? What's the best ways for people to follow you and your team?
I mean, honestly, mostly just Twitter or Instagram. It's just Jack_Harvey.
Okay.
42 is our social media handles. Like, we're trying to push out some good things, like different things. We have a video series that I love called "You Don't Know Jack," which wasn't meant to be derogatory. It's purely just a case of like, you don't know me, but
Sure.
kind of got some humor to it as well. So we're trying to basically do more get to knows. That's really why I wanted to, come on the podcast with you and whatnot. And I think it's so that people see that, there's more than just a driver side of me. I'm also a huge Harry Potter fan of all the Marvel movies. I prefer Marvel to DC.
Okay, I have to ask you real quick. I'm going to interrupt. Is there a favorite character in Marvel? Because I'm a huge Marvel fan.
Yeah, I mean, man, I loved Thor. I was such a Thor fan. Iron Man. I mean, mostly because when they did a few shots in his garage and he had the car collection, that I was like, yes, yes, that's what I want. And then I'm pretty sure he like falls down into like an original like AC Cobra, and I just cried at the fact that like anyone was able to like smash this car in production and just be okay with it. Irritated me. But yeah, Marvel, I don't know. I like DC, but I don't know. I'm just not into it the same way. But I think that's why I guess I brought it up earlier is, I think one of the things I appreciated about, Joey, and then obviously meeting everybody at Indy was just in a lot of ways, like people obviously think it's cool that we're at the track and we're getting to drive. And, I appreciate the respect that people give us for that, but also that everyone just has treated me like a human being, because at the end of the day, so like I said, like finding common ground with people is, is so important. And, being able to actually I hate it when he talks this is my number one pet peeve. I'm going to share it on the podcast because
go right ahead.
It irritates me. I hate it when people aren't Star Wars fan use Baby Yoda or like the Mandalorian as gift. And I'm like, don't use that. That's reserved for true fans. That's not for you. That's for us. Baby Yoda's not for you. Don't use it as a gift. It's for me. Okay. And I get mad at that. But then I also do like to have the time to like reach, have this kind of conversation. And I'm now realizing that you ask me questions and I fail to ask them like back of you. Like I'm really interested in like, well, firstly, what color that. So that's just Kenobi's lightsaber.
Yes.
Blue. But like, what is your color? Like, what if you were choosing?
Oh, yeah. No, you know what? Believe it or not, if I was choosing one, if I had to choose one that was in the movies or something, I would choose Luke's green one from Return of the Jedi. But if I was just making my own and I could choose, I would definitely go with a yellow saber. I would go with
that's cool.
Saber.
I kind of like that. Kind of curious, like because like I thought Rey's saber right at the end was pretty neat.
Yeah.
In all fairness, but then I was trying to understand like because this is where things are changing a bit, and I'm trying to make like it as legends, and then it's like, is it canon? And like if it's canon now, what does that mean? That basically where her lightsaber color came from.
So not to be even more nerdy than I should be, but
do it. I love it.
From what I've been told, the yellow saber is for people who are dedicated to studying and like because they're also so knowledgeable from reaching a level of knowledge. And so the only people who did, and she had the books that she got in The Last Jedi. So she took those and all she did until Rise of Skywalker was study. And then there were other ones, and I think if you look it up, there's a color thing on whatever Wikipedia that will tell you what it stands for. But like some of the guards from the Jedi Temple had reached a certain level of that knowledge, and they had yellow. But I'm pretty sure that's what it is, and I know when I ask my guys, they'll be able to tell me.
So then this is where like my mind goes to, because I saw something a while ago that basically someone tried to say that kyber crystal is colorless until the person themselves gets it. And I was like, well, is that confirmed anywhere? Like, I'm not sure if that's true or not, because that isn't like what I've seen. Right. So then let's say that is or isn't true. Like, one, where did Rey get her crystal from? I want to know. And then 2, if like how has she made it that color? Like, did it change color? Like, how has this happened? These are the questions I worry about.
Well, you know what? We have a guy on our show named Alfie, my cousin, and Alfie we call him the Book of Alfie, and you can guarantee that that will be the first question I ask him.
There's going to be some follow-ups here.
Yes.
And then I guess going back to like Andor, just for a quick sec, because I know you're busy and I don't want to take up all your night.
You're fine.
I walked out of we walked out of The Last Jedi with a friend of mine. And the first thing he said, the very first thing is like, where did I get the money to pay for this? And I'm like, what are you on about? He's like, you know, the First Order, the Empire. He's like, where did they get money to do it? I'm like, dude, don't stress yourself out trying to figure it out. Just enjoy it. And then I'm like, oh God, I don't know, where did they get the money to do that? And now you're watching like Andor and you're getting to see how this happens. And I'm like, okay, now we can all just like relax. And we know how it's good.
You see, that's where I try to do that separation from the real world thing, because then you start going, oh well, there's taxes, there's probably all these laws and fees, and you start going, no, I just want to see lightsabers and cool ships. Just give me that, right? So but
I think, well, I mean, seriously, I thank you so much for like having me on to do this, because it's so rare that, you know, I really get to like properly geek out
anytime
about it. And honestly, we could just, it almost feels like this should be like the halfway point. This should be like, you know, the stepping off for an interval sort of deal. But like, it is fun. And, you know, I think anyone who knows me knows that I actually do have a true fan of Star Wars, not just what I've watched, you know, in the movies 9 times, but well, actually I guess 11 times, because I like Rogue One. And so I actually think Solo is criminally underrated. I'm not saying it's the best acting, but I think people miss the point of that. And I know I keep trying to say bye, and I keep finding another point to talk about. Fine. However, like, to me, that movie wasn't about Harrison Ford and how he is as Han Solo. It was about how Han Solo becomes Han Solo and the things he goes through in life, to become this, you know.
No, you're 100%
this awesome old dude.
Look, we always say on the show, one of the things we always say is, all Star Wars is not perfect, but it's still all Star Wars. And and if people don't like certain things, that's okay. They cannot like it. But I agree with you. I really enjoy watching Solo when I see it. I have no quarrels with it at all. I think it's a good show. So
well, and you know, because having read some of the comics and being into the comics as well, I excited to see like where they can take that story, because again, they can bridge a gap here between like what Maul has done as well, potentially, between some of his you know, various appearances. But this is what I mean. This is why I feel like this should just be the interval time, because you know, it kind of just keeps going. But
if you want to stay, you can stay. I don't want to make it go, because we got more things going. But
it's just fun. It's just fun to like talk about. And I guess the thing that's fun as well is talking about it with people who are immediately on the same, maybe not an opinion, but like at the same like knowledge, geek, you know, depth, whatever you want to call it, like appreciation really of Star Wars. And I don't know, I just think it's cool.
Well, I can tell you this. One, not only are you a great race car driver, is that the proper thing to say? A race car driver? Yes. Okay. Not only are you a great driver, but you're a great person. You're a good friend of Joey, and we appreciate you here at the Molinaro household. And I'm just glad you're a Star Wars fan. So you know what? If we do get to connect and everything down in Tampa, St. Pete, you better be prepared and see if you can go a day before or a day after when you get time, and we'll all shoot over to Galaxy's Edge and
that would be awesome
over there. So
I'm in.
Okay, well, good. Well, for our fans, Jack, you know what? Just go look at Indy Car. Go find Jack Harvey. He's number 45. He's with the High V car, Ray Hall Letterman Lanigan racing team. We consider him a friend of the show. We appreciate him so much. And you know what? It was great having him on. And we're going to take a quick break. And until next time, may the force be with you. So I'm not going to stop. I just paused right there. I'm not going to stop because the regular crew's coming in. But this is my cousin Alfie, though I told you the Book of Alfie. And
Hi.
Alfie, this
Hey, what's going on, man?
Jack Harvey. This is his daughter Azalea.
Is that Ash Ketchum in the background there? I can't
Yes,
quite
that's
tell.
Ash.
Real
Okay,
quick,
stop.
we have, so Jack had a question for me and before he was going, and I said the Book of Alfie will know this. All right. So
Well, now you're putting me on the spot. What if I don't know it?
Well,
so
I don't know.
no, he was talking about the colors of lightsabers.
Mhm.
And when he was talking about the colors of lightsabers, we were talking about Rey's yellow, and I
Right.
told him that I believe because of her knowledge and depth of the reading of the historical things and things like that, those people got yellow lightsabers. If I'm wrong, let me know. But I could have sworn it had to do something with the books and knowledge and all that stuff that you were able to have the yellow lightsaber. But then he also brought up, do people get to take a crystal and then choose the color, or does the color, is it already in the crystal? Right?
As far as
right,
I
Jack?
know,
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. Like essentially,
the yellow
read something-
lightsaber is, yeah, I agree, is being retconned into meaning something. But then again, you have to go back to the Marvel comics because Luke has a yellow
He
lightsaber
did.
in between Empire and Jedi.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Well, I guess that's like my thing is like I saw something a while ago where somebody tried to say that all kyber crystals are colorless, basically, until a certain Jedi would find one, and then it would change color in that to that person, and then obviously the Sith would corrupt it, and then, for example, you could purify it again, and it would become white. And then I'm like, well, okay, because like you've seen. Well, firstly, then I'm like, well, one, where did Rey get her crystal from? And then secondly, I'm like, how has it become like that color? Because like she's then taken a crystal. Let's say she took a blue one because that was the lightsaber that she basically used all the time in the movies. How has that become yellow now?
I don't know.
Is it because she used?
Well, I don't know.
Leia's was blue too, wasn't it? Yeah, they were both blue.
Yep. Yeah, they were both blue.
In
Yeah.
that scene, yeah. But she buried them both.
Awesome scene, by the way.
Now, my headcanon was that she used both of Luke's crystals from his Jedi lightsaber and then the Legacy Skywalker saber, because primary colors, blue and green, would make yellow, right?
I did not know that.
I don't know.
And that's just my headcanon. And because my headcanon also says that a blade comes out of the other end because she's Rey.
It doesn't come out? I thought it was a dual-sided thing.
No, I don't think it's ever been shown as it was only shown once for a few seconds, and it was not dual-sided. And the replicas are not dual-sided.
They're not. But okay.
Even if you go to Galaxy's Edge and you build a lightsaber, though, the color of the crystal you choose basically says what kind of Jedi you are.
It's already it's a predetermined color,
right?
Then,
so if you pick a green, that is more of like an offensive Jedi. A blue is defensive. One more with the peaceful side of the Force.
So then, why, if that's the case, then why didn't Anakin mostly fight with a green? And then Yoda, I would say, was defensive, right? But he was fighting with a green, where really he feel like he should have a blue. Kenobi fits for him.
See, you guys.
I don't know. These are questions that I've just, yes. And honestly, I like that. I like leaving, not knowing everything, so that when they do come out with something, because I thought the Vader comic book line was awesome, like in terms of like showing people how to actually like, how a kyber crystal, could like be influenced and stuff, and I just thought that was cool.
Well, and see, here's my question too. I'm going to take the lightsaber thing one step further. Why are the Inquisitors? How did they get a red crystal? They're not Sith.
Yes.
Don't they kind of them?
Yeah, but that's a Sith. Them? They're not Sith. They're just
Dark
Jedi.
I think their lightsabers are kind of cool. That's probably the only thing where I'm like, Disney, rein it in a bit. Like when they can like spin it and then fly off the ledge.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm like, okay.
That goes back to your Rebels. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. And like, don't get me wrong, I thought the crossblade like Kylo Ren's, but without the what would you call it? The broken crystal was just cool. I think it looks cool, and I think that makes sense. But flying around with a lightsaber, I think it's awesome, kinda. But then I'm like, well, you've got flying cars, you don't need to fly with a lightsaber.
All right, you guys ready for this? I'm going to give you some Star Wars feedback from Wikipedia. The yellow lightsaber indicates a Jedi Sentinel, a Jedi who has honed his or her skills in a balance of combat and scholarly pursuits. That's what a yellow lightsaber stands for. So it's balance of combat and scholarly, and that's why I was going back to her having the Jedi text.
Yeah, but that's only a few years that she had them.
Yeah.
Did it change color though, or did she just find a yellow one? Because I was always the impression that Mace Windu got gifted his by his village, like the village that he was born in. But I don't know if that's canon. That might be legend.
No, but you're bringing knowledge there. I'd never heard that before. I like that. Yeah, I don't know. And that was on Wikipedia, either. Which Wikipedia is, I guess, where we go to for everything.
Yeah, the Sentinel is one of, like I said, at Galaxy's Edge, Sentinel is one of the ones you can pick. And then once you pick that crystal, if you continue, like Sentinel has a set of parts to make a lightsaber.
Okay.
A Guardian has another set of parts to make a lightsaber.
You know how I think they could make the building the light? I haven't done this before, but I think they could make the lightsaber experience kind of more unique. Is that when you sign up to do it, before you actually build it, that you take a personality quiz.
Oh.
And then they tell you what color you are based off of your personality. Because then, for example, someone might love the color red, but they're like, oh my God, if I get that, I'm associated with the bad side of the Force. Like, what am I going to do?
Well, okay, Jack, you brought this up. And you know what? If you're here, I'm going to keep going with this conversation because you brought up Harry Potter. And Harry Potter obviously had the hat. And the hat shows which group you went into. Slytherin, Hufflepuff, whatever, Gryffindor. If Star Wars, if Disney, if Lucasfilm was listening, a great way to get more people involved and wanting to buy stuff and buy gear, go make an academy show and make it to where, like you said, this test tells you what color saber you get, whether you tend to be more offensive or defensive, whether you should be somebody who studies, whether you should be somebody. I like that.
Yeah.
And then now you don't think they've got a guy in a room with futuristic, untested computer programs making Luke Skywalker's face for nothing, do you? I fully believe that the Jedi Academy show is coming sooner than later.
You think that really? Gosh, I would love a Jedi Academy show before awesome. the sequels. I think that would be fantastic, and it would sell merch so much. I mean, if the different groups who are training different ways have different, whether it's robes or sabers or whatever, I mean, that would be, I'm all in on that.
Yeah, that would be cool.
And now you're mixing Harry Potter and Star Wars.
I will say that the saber building is expensive, but it is probably the one thing that's worth the money at Galaxy.
That's what I heard. So I heard that the robot, getting a droid, was cool because it's cool.
Mm-hmm.
However, I heard that the lightsaber experience is worth the money.
Yeah, it's really worth it.
Yeah. Okay.
We got lucky when we went to the cantina. That it was the end of the day and it was packed. It was completely packed. There was nowhere to sit. We got stuck at the end of the bar. It was me, my wife, her mother, our 3 kids. And the guy was like, hey, I'm going to make this fun for you. There's no room for you here. You're off away from everything, but we're going to have a great time.
Nice.
So he was making drinks for the kids, joking around with them, showing them all the stuff, letting them sample everything. It was a really fun time.
Alfie, how many times have you ridden Rise of the Resistance?
Once. I only got to ride it once. Yeah. You could only ride it once.
Okay. Jack and I have neither one ridden it.
Because you also teed that up as if he was about to say some crazy high.
I thought number. He was. Yeah. I assumed he would he would say he wrote it a number of times. So
No, you could only ride it one time. When I was
Okay.
there, we missed it the first day, and then the second day, my son and I just went to Galaxy's Edge alone, and you literally had to be there at 6 o'clock in the morning in the parking lot. You had to be inside the park, and when I kid you not, within less than 3 minutes, the entire day was full.
Wow.
Well, I'm gonna hop in real quick, and I'm just gonna say this. One, Jack, if you want to hang around for a little bit or for as long as you want, you're more than welcome to. We'd love to have you here. I don't want to force your hand though.
Yeah, I'm gonna actually have my dinner now because I put it off because obviously with the stuff for Gracie and then coming back and obviously wanting to jump on. But I so appreciate you guys letting me come and join you and just kind of geek out with you guys. That's probably the most fun on a podcast I've had. So thank you.
Well, anytime, and can't wait to meet up with you again and hang out.
Yeah, that sounds great.
And appreciate all you do, and thanks for being on. Really appreciate it, man.
Oh yeah, anytime. Thank you guys.
Thanks. Talk to you.
Appreciate it. Cheers, mate.
Thank you.